Hello and welcome to the Tifo Football Podcast. I'm Joe Devine, and I'm now joined by JJ Bull the Bullet. Hello, JJ.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm really good. It's good to be here. Having a great time.
Well, it's great to have you here.
Super awake.
Yeah, super awake. For reference, listeners to the podcast, we are live streaming this right now from YouTube. It's Sunday night. We've just watched the AFCON final and a few other bits of football stuff from today. And it went on about half an hour longer than we were expecting, slightly more, 45 minutes, some might say. So we're a little bit tired now.
I was expecting it to do this, judging by how Egypt tend to play.
Yeah, that's true. It was probably guessable. And you know what? A man who almost certainly guessed that this was the case also joins us now. It's the Athletic's Carl Anka. Hi, Carl.
Hello there.
How are you?
I'm doing very well, thank you. How are you getting on?
I'm good, thanks. Carl's joining us all the way from Manchester. Modern technology is absolutely fantastic. Riveting stuff, isn't it? There we go. Now, anyway, today we'll be talking about the AFCON final. We'll also be asking Carl some questions about AFCON generally, because it's been a splendid tournament. And then Carl will wave us goodbye and go to bed at a normal time. And JJ and I will continue to talk about Barcelona, Atletico, Madrid, big game. Inter AC was this weekend, of course, too. Man United lost to Middlesbrough on penalties, and lots of other FA Cup-related stories happened. So we'll talk about those later on, too. And, of course, Burnley and Watford with a 0-0 draw, which will almost certainly lead the podcast because of the big nature of that story.
I can confirm now that I have definitely seen that game.
Yes. Well, in fact, I can confirm that JJ and I have seen almost all of these games.
Yes.
Burnley and Watford was certainly a game of football that occurred
There
this
you
weekend.
go. That's
exactly
it.
what
The
happened.
delicate way of saying things. And in fact, if you're interested in the delicate way of saying things, then you should visit The Athletic, because they always say things in a delicate way, unless it needs hammering home, in which case they hammer it home. They go down B&Q, they buy a hammer, and they hammer it home as hard as needs be to get the facts across. That doesn't sound good at all. Anyway, it's The Athletic. Visit theathletic.com/Tifo. Theathletic.com/Tifo, where you'll be able to find all kinds of wonderful writing, including from the wonderful Carl Anka. Carl, tell us about the best piece you've ever written for The Athletic.
Oh, wow, that's a really fun question. The best piece I've written for The Athletic in the year 2022 is a piece I wrote just before AFCON started, which opined why AFCON mattered.
Yes.
And why, despite the inconsistent and slightly sparse coverage the tournament had in its group stages, I believe this football tournament to be a vibrant, entertaining, thrilling, and dramatic tournament that has no real peer or comparison in world football. You can only really define an AFCON when you compare it to a different AFCON. Because once you talk about an AFCON for too long, you start going, wait, how is that possible in a game of football?
Well, there we go. I agree. I read that piece of Carl's and it was very fun. You did use a lot of adjectives there to describe AFCON, all synonyms of exciting. I'm not sure today would be the best day to use all those words, but we will come to talk about that. But for the time being, now that producer Don has solved the live audio issue and JJ Bull is here stacked and ready to go, I will leave you in the warm hands and the cool embrace of Carl Anka. AFCON. Yes. Senegal win. Senegal win on penalties, Carl, is what I'm trying to say. Now, there were many people before the game that tweeted very amusingly about how the game was likely to go to extra time and penalties. Egypt, of course, famously having only scored 4 goals to reach the final so far. But, of course, it was Senegal that passed, and it feels like the right winner in the end, doesn't it?
Great deal of catharsis for Senegal and fans of Senegalese football. I believe there's been 2 or 3 polls with varying formality that asked many African nations who they'd be supporting in the AFCON final. And it was a very clear most sub-Saharan African nations were supporting Senegal and most North African nations were supporting Egypt.
Yeah, that was interesting.
Which, again, one of those things where you go, oh, that makes sense. And then you look a bit deeper into certain countries that didn't quite hew that line and go, right, yes, derbies and whatnot, and other political one-upsmanship and aggro. It was not an entertaining final by any chance. I'd say, largely by design from Carlos Queiroz' Egyptian side, that very much wanted to reduce the amount of football being played. A fantastic Twitter commentator on football at United Arena looked up the amount of the in-play minutes of the ball in this final. So in the 90 minutes that were played. The ball was only in play for around about 40, which is very Queiroz-esque in terms of we're gonna, in the Deschamps style or on the Santos style of Portugal 2016. You can get to a final of international competition by not really playing too much football and just smothering the space.
And on that point, Carl, can I say, we made a video on Tifo about 3 years ago where we talked about time wasting. And I believe in the last 5 or 6 years, the game with the littlest amount of time actually played was between Cardiff and Burnley, I think, and it was 39 minutes. So that this was 40 in 90, that really puts it in, it's a strong contender for the least amount of football played in the football game.
Yeah. So if you are a fan of football being played in football matches, then I think you will like the fact that Senegal won. I think this. I know we talk about narratives and stories. The narratives involved in a Senegalese victory at AFCON. It's their first ever AFCON in their entire history. Aliou Cissé, their manager, lost in as a player in 2002, missing a penalty in that shootout as well. Senegal also lost in the final of the 2019 AFCON to Algeria 1-0. So this feels like a culmination for this Senegal team. This is Aliou Cissé's been in charge for a decent amount of time. He's taken them from their highest peak since the 2002 side he played in. With Sadio Mane, you remember their efforts in the 2018 World Cup that I'm still angry about because they should not. They didn't. They only got knocked out of the World Cup due to disciplinary issues, and I'm going to call HR about that.
But this is nice, though, isn't it? Because I know that there were some supporters who were starting to maybe question the long-term view of Aliou Cissé.
This was very much Cissé's final one. Yeah, it was very much Cissé's sort of, I'm not going to say it's the last dance, but it was very much seen as the beginning of the end of this window of opportunity. It was sort of the last one where the likes of Mane and Koulibaly were going to be at their peak of their powers. And even though the Senegalese team runs fairly deep, they've still got, Premier League watchers know Sarr from Watford and whatnot. They've got some players coming through. This very much felt like this will be the last real opportunity for Mane, Cissé and Koulibaly to win that, despite the fact that they're going to do it all over again next year in Ivory Coast.
Yeah, no, for sure. Well, listen, I think the thing that emblemised the final for me, Sadio Mane scoring the winning penalty. In fact, this game was sort of set up beforehand, I suppose, a kind of Anglo-centric way of looking at it, or a Premier League-focused way of looking at it. It was the Salah versus Mane final. It's quite interesting to me that Salah was going to take the fifth penalty, doesn't even get the opportunity to do so, and Mane, it was a fantastic penalty to win the game, wasn't it?
He really hammered it. One reason I adore watching Sadio Mane play football. I think he's one of the most entertaining footballers to watch since around 2018, and he's got a very I always describe as an upper gear, a very visible upper gear. He sort of, you can see when Mane takes a breath, rolls his sleeves, I'm going, all right, I'm going to try and win this game now. Sometimes it doesn't always come off. Notably the 2018 Champions League final, but he has this sort of. Have you ever watched someone try and solve a Rubik's Cube and go, oh, wait, not that way, let me fix it that way? That's Mane when he's running at pace and trying to solve loads of options. And I really enjoy it when he makes a mistake and goes, I'm going to fix this later on. So the fact that he missed the penalty, within the first 5 minutes of this AFCON final, and then there's that moment just before he takes the penalty where Salah is telling Gabinski sort of, this is where mouth covered, this is when Mane puts his penalties. And Mane just walks up to the Egyptian goalkeeper and goes, no, I'm going to put it that way. And he lied, by the way. He lied about the direction he was going to put it. Sent you the direction, but it was saved. So, angry Mane is a very fun thing to watch in football, and he definitely hit that penalty with a fury there. That was fun. Also, the interesting thing is, even though we talk about this with such a Premier League centric or an Anglo-centric way, this final is defined by the defenders, right?
Sure.
Senegal, as a national team, in this AFCON and in their last AFCON, they're a defense first team. Koulibaly, Anka's what is the stingiest / successful team in African football. They won all of their knockout games in the last AFCON by a single goal. I think they only scored one goal to get through the groups in this AFCON as well. So we can talk about Sadio Mane and Ismaila Sarr and whatnot, but no, Aliou Cissé, first and foremost, he builds a team that know how to win knockout games. And to do that in all of international football right now, you need to be stout. solid and very economical in your goal scoring.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Well, JJ, talking about defending, one way of defending is fouling. And I believe around 90 minutes in there had already been 50 fouls in the game.
It's 53 in total.
53 in total.
Yeah.
That's a lot. Now, put that into perspective. Just say a lot.
It's many more than you would normally expect to get in a game. I don't think I've ever seen that before.
Sure.
I'm sure I have.
You looked up the stats for the other teams in the tournament as well, and fouls per game. Was it Gabon that had 26 on average fouls per game?
Yeah, let me just tell you what that is, because that was good.
That was quite incredible.
So yeah, Gabon have the highest fouls per 90 rate, which is something crazy, of 26.3.
It's like every 3 minutes, 40 seconds.
I looked through like most of the leagues. I looked through the Argentinian league, then all the European leagues. No one
Trying to find a one with a higher rate.
No team is close to that.
Sure.
Again, you can only compare an AFCON to other AFCONs. It's a unique time signature.
Super. But then Egypt are behind them. They're the second most fouls per game, 19.7.
Yeah.
That's absurd.
Yeah.
Absurd. You think about, obviously the first round of group games in AFCON, I think the 9 games we saw had something like 6 1-0 game and 2 draws.
Yeah.
And a lot of the discussion was, why is this such a low scoring tournament? To which there was a great tweet that simply said, well, you're playing against grown men that aren't afraid to hurt you.
Yeah.
And this is AFCON. There are no airs and no graces. You can be a Champions League winner. You can be a World Cup quarterfinals or constantly play 60 games a season for one of the 12 richest clubs in the world.
Yeah.
But when it comes to AFCON, you will have a game on a pitch of ambiguous quality and be up against a fullback who plays for maybe 1% of your yearly salary. And that fullback will know, I've got 1 yellow card in the bank.
Yeah.
And I'm going to do as many fouls as I can before I get that yellow card. And then from then on, I'm just going to be super sneaky so I don't get another yellow card. This is... If you're a football fan that likes watching football, maybe you might not like this. But also, I think if you're a football fan that talks about how money has ruined the game, or perhaps talks about how advances in player care and statistics and the efficiency of goal scoring have stopped players from dribbling or stopped, just ridiculous open passages of play, then I would wholeheartedly advise you watch AFCON, because there will always be a 20-minute period where the concept of midfield is forgotten and everyone's just running at each other.
I'm going to miss it, It's been fun this January. On the sort of note of what you were saying there, Carl, I listened to you on the Wrighty's House, Ian Wright's podcast, a couple of weeks ago, and you said something which stuck with me throughout January. I kept thinking about it as I was watching games. You said, it's AFCON, anyone can get it, was your description of the group stages. So I really loved that, obviously, of course, meaning any team can win. And so I wanted to ask you, as we say, congratulations to Senegal for winning and move on from the final. I wanted to ask you, Carl, what was your favourite anyone can get it moment from AFCON 2021?
Unfortunately, it's the one that knocked my country out of the tournament, which was so Comoros' victory over Ghana in the final group stage game is
Anyone can get it.
Anyone can get it. It was Ghana went into that game. Andre Ayew, before the game was even played, went, let's not even talk about Ghana not making the knockouts. We're going to beat Comoros. And they went 2-0 down after 20 minutes and they lost their captain after 25. It was a ridiculous farcical game that, if you're not a Ghanaian football fan, you can say that was highly entertaining. It was the game of the tournament so far. I also think the way Ivory Coast put Algeria, sent them out of the tournament, very much had me think, oh, hang on, Ivory Coast has turned up a cycle early and they're going to do something. So
anyone can get it.
Anyone can get it.
Really, they can. Like that. Honestly, it did stick with me. JJ, what was your favourite moment of the tournament? You were talking a lot about that goal earlier.
Oh, the Malawi goal.
Yeah.
That's probably the goal of the tournament, isn't it?
His
name's Mango, isn't it? MH.
I can't remember the name of the chap.
Mahango, I can't remember his name. The boy. So I think that ball is still moving now.
Yeah.
Through the air.
I don't understand the physics of how. Do you know the goal we're talking about, Carl? The Malawi goal from about 40 yards out. I can't. His foot is only about a foot away from the ball when he kicks it. I don't know how he gets that much power.
It doesn't seem to dip. This is the thing that normally gravity would pull that down. And it's not
gravity's different, AFCON. XG is more of a gentle suggestion rather than a basis for taking shots in AFCON, which is fun. Again, if you are the sort of football fan that misses long range speculative efforts that somehow managed to careen in or semi-farcical goals, as evidenced by Ivory Coast's opening.
Oh, I'm interested in Ivory Coast.
Ivory Coast opening group game. There's sort of two great joys to football. One is where you're watching high quality players play at the best of their ability, and you're seeing the limits of what is possible in football being pushed. Another one is when you're seeing very good football players play quite badly. And AFCON very often has both in the same game.
Greatly enjoyable. My final question to you, Carl, before we let you go to bed, is stand-up players. Would you tell us? I mean, obviously, Sadio Mane is still on the show for me as we approach the end. But there were lots of players whose names I didn't recognise, who play for clubs that I haven't seen before. Was there anyone that stood out to you that wasn't obvious before the tournament began?
Vincent Abubakar, who might not be the most well-known to Premier League watchers, the Cameroon captain.
Top goal scorer for the tournament, right?
Top goal scorer from the tournament, who seems to not quite enjoy the amount of attention Mohamed Salah gets, which was made for a nice little bit of needle in that semi-final as well. Yeah. Egypt's third choice goalkeeper who started this final, Gabanski,
isn't it?
Gabanski.
Let me have a quick look again.
My apologies for pronunciation.
It's Gabaski.
Who
is he the third choice goalkeeper?
He was the third choice goal. He did not feature in any group game of Egypt during this tournament, but due to injuries and affectations.
Anyone can get it, JJ. Honestly, Gabaski, he was so big in goal.
He's so tall. He looks massive. I think
he had a
some of it might even
fantastic
be the presence
game.
he has. So some people are tall, right, and they just are big people. But if you come across with the confidence that you know you're going to save stuff,
it was his presence.
It almost looked like he was standing in front of the goal line, even though he wasn't, because he's got that presence.
Yeah, I thought he was absolutely fantastic. I had no idea. I didn't realise that he was the third choice goalkeeper. There we go.
Yeah. And just the entire Comoros team. I think everyone involved at Comoros you should look up as well. I would also say the round of 16 game between, I want to say, Equatorial Guinea and Cameroon has a gentleman who plays for AS Roma, who I always...
Carl speaks more slowly while Googling the name.
Yes.
Slow the sentence down so no one notices.
There's a gentleman there who plays defensive midfield for AS Roma, who also features for the Equatorial Guinea,
right.
who is just... The story of his footballing journey is one of the most remarkable things I've ever heard in my life. At the age of... I think he just basically leaves home and goes, right, I'm going to travel halfway across the world. Basically was granted refugee status in Italy and worked through the Italian academy system essentially as an orphan so he can realize his footballing dream. His name escapes me right now and I feel really, 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 really bad.
People in chat said Diawara, is that it?
Yes. He's amazing. He is very,
Diawara,
he's very
there
much
we go.
amazing.
Thank you to the chat.
And while not everyone necessarily wants to look up a defensive midfielder. Manchester United, please look up a defensive midfielder. I think his story and how he came to be playing football and also how Equatorial Guinea came to coming to this African Cup of Nations and reaching the knockout stages is remarkable. There was a great stat in BBC during the extra time coverage where they said there hasn't been an extra time winner in an AFCON final since 1965. There are 4 nations that competed at this African Cup of Nations that have gained their independence since 1965. Right, African football is such a joyous and freeing concept, and is constantly full of people and people who have done incredible things within our lifetimes, and have done things that, if you're listening to this and you are UK based or European based, you thankfully don't have to do or consider anymore, right? If you want to be a football player in the United Kingdom, you go to an academy, you find a club. You don't necessarily do things like what Sadio Mane did, which is essentially one day up and leave his village, catch a bus to Dakar, play in the street for ages, and just hope someone recognises you. Yeah, there's a great part in Sadio Mane's life where he called up his mother from a hotel, and his mother went, "Where are you in the world?" And he just didn't know because he knew he was vaguely in Europe. And he knew he was somewhere close to Switzerland as part of his sort of great trajectory to where he is. But he just went, no, I'm here now. I don't know where I am. When I figure out the nearest city that is recognizable to me in a map, a Paris, a Vienna, a Berlin, then I can tell you where you are and we can possibly get you over. And you now consider he has just helped his nation win the very first African Cup of Nations ever. God, I love AFCON.
It's amazing. That is very cool. Well, I will say, as well as all the unexpected, as well as all the anyone can get it, it is worth pointing out that the 3 of the 4 sort of favourite teams ahead did make it to the semi-final stage, didn't they? Algeria, of course, going out in the group stages was the really big shock, and also as Nigeria, wasn't it, going out in the round of 16 immediately after winning all of their group games. So there were some sort of giants falling along the way. But what a fantastic tournament. I'm gonna miss it. It was nice to watch throughout January.
You got to remember also it feeds right into World Cup qualifying. So Senegal will play Egypt in World Cup qualifying in March. Yes. Ghana will play Nigeria in World Cup qualifying in March. They haven't faced each other in a long time, but Ghana versus Nigeria is essentially the biggest derby in sub-Saharan Africa. Daniel Story, who writes for the iPaper, wrote this excellent piece about the nascent African Super League and why it won't work. And he essentially made the point that while African football doesn't necessarily have... one of the inherent thrills about African football is the derbies. In that, again, not only does anyone can get it, but basically every nation has another nation they desperately want to beat. And due to terrible colonialist reasons into FIFA, where there's only 5 World Cup qualification spots, that means every time there's World Cup qualifying playoffs, there's always at least one huge derby to get a World Cup slot. So March international break, give that a watch, and we get to do AFCON all over again in June next year because it's in Ivory Coast.
That is exciting. There we go. Well, Carl Anka, thanks so much for joining us. It's very late on a Sunday night. You should go to bed now. But thank you so much for being here. We much appreciate it. And did you want to say, JJ? You've been opening your mouth for the last couple of minutes, like you wanted to say something.
Oh no.
You just have an open mouth.
Sometimes my mouth opens.
Okay. Well, JJ's open mouth indicates a goodbye and a thank you to you, Carl Anka. And we hope to see you again soon.
Hope to be back soon. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Okay,
have a great week, everyone.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.
There he goes. There goes Mr. Carl Anka. I've left the Zoom now. And with that, we'll go to a break and be back momentarily. It's not a real break. It's just a break for the audio editor for the actual podcast version. What's happening there, Don?
You used to stop stuff.
Oh, right. I can carry on talking to the chat, can I?
Absolutely.
Fine. Chat, I hope everything's going well. I didn't get a chance to look at the chat. Some people have mentioned Joe's playing a game on his phone. No, it's just that I have too many things on the screen, so I needed to look at the plan on the phone, and I needed to look at the comments, but I couldn't really read them. Are you having a nice time, JJ?
Yeah, I'm having a lovely time so far. I like doing these live streams. They're nice. Someone's asked...
What's someone asked?
Steve Jennings says, JJ's open mouth allowing the ivory ghost to inhibit him. Well, this is good.
That is good.
JJ breathing like a fish as usual, says Big Burrito.
Yes, breathing like a fish. Fine. Any other comments about that? That is good. That is good. Let's have a quick look at the chat and see if I've missed anything. Avocado on toast is the best. Well, banana drama. Some people I know in London would agree with you, but others agree with me that peanut butter on toast is the best. Yeah. Aviral says, Joe, you beauty. Thank you, Aviral. Oh, yeah, that's right. Nkuleko, we didn't talk about the ref. We were going to. It was on the plan, but Carl ended that very nicely there, so I didn't want to go.
Yeah, I didn't actually need any input from me because it's better just with Carl.
It's also hard after what Carl talked about with what young African footballers have to go through. Going back to talk about the ref didn't really feel like the right move, so I'll leave it out, and it's fine. The ref was a bit. It's a strange game, I would say. Like there were a couple
Lots
of moments,
fouls,
both sides.
No red cards, no red very cards. Clear yellows.
Yeah, and also a bit of diving as well towards the end.
Oh yeah,
it was all interesting. Yeah. Yes. What else have we got in here? Yes. Oh, there's Liam Devine in the chat. Hello, Liam.
Do you know? Did I tell you this? That I got a message from a message on Instagram from someone called same last name as me, right?
Someone called the same last name as me.
His last name. This is for you as well. This
Bull.
Is for you,
his
chat,
last name
right?
was Bull.
Yeah. His last name's Max Bull, right? So,
Max Bull.
Yeah. So I got this message randomly.
Was he the most possible Bull, or is that?
I don't know, but this is the thing. So Max messaged me on one of the social things. I can't remember what it was actually, and Facebook, and said that he'd been listening to Tifo for a while, and then saw we had the same last name. Didn't think anything of it, but then saw that something I tweeted or something came up in his timeline, and he thought I looked a bit like his granddad. It turns out he's my cousin. So I found like a new family member.
For a second, when that story was going, he looked a bit. You said he thought you looked a bit like his granddad. Yeah. Turns out I'm his granddad. You're actually his cousin.
Yeah.
How do you know this?
Like second cousin.
You know now that you're a big deal. Everyone, look at all the people on YouTube want to talk to you.
Real big.
Are you
deal.
Sure that someone's not trying to pretend that they're your cousin?
I would think that
to get near that sweet Tifo money.
Well, he knew.
So much of it.
He knew other family members of mine, which is, I mean, that's a good scammer's trick, isn't it?
Wow.
But
does Max Bull listen to Tifo? Is that?
I think he does. If you're listening now, Max, thanks for getting in touch.
Is his name actually Max Bull?
I meant to get in touch with you again, actually, Max, because my family were very interested in finding out about it, because they also know who he is, because they know who his family is, obviously, because we're related.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sounds like it's not that much of a surprise. It just sounds like you didn't know you had a cousin called Max.
I didn't.
Right.
He didn't know I was his cousin either. You know, the cousin called JJ.
So there we go.
Name.
The best RC saying, I'm JJ's cousin too. So it sounds like there's a few of them out there that are there. Dudemeister96 saying JJ is actually 58, isn't he?
I'm definitely not 58.
Well, there we go. Well. Johnny5446 saying, we are all JJ's cousin. Very insightful comment there.
I shouldn't have told this story on the live stream.
Fergus Collins, I'm JJ's great uncle.
Oh dear, I've started something that's not going to stop, is it?
JJ is my uncle, JJ is my dad. Yes.
I have had enough practice with the internet and these streams to know when not to say things.
Well,
but
also,
for a moment, I sort of forgot I was talking to not just you.
That's right, exactly. Well, it's the live stream, isn't it? Don, are you sort of fixed up? Thanks to whoever's audio producing this. We've taken a long segue there. You will have had to listen to the whole thing because you don't know when we're starting again. But that moment, the Athletics audio podcast editor, is now. We've returned. What a lovely break that was. Learned so many things during that break. Thanks again to Carl Anka for joining us so late on a Sunday evening. What a terrific guy. But now we'll be bidding farewell to AFCON, adieu, and we'll be talking about Barcelona 4 to Atletico Madrid. What a game, I would say.
I love this.
What a game. Very, very exciting, particularly that opening goal from Jordi Alba. Goodness me, he shinned it, but boy, did he shin it well.
The wonder goal he scored, yeah. Well, I mean, that was set up...
The wonder goal, yeah. That's the one. Yeah, that's the one.
That was set up by Adama Traore, who got a standing ovation. So we'll stay on the Jordi Alba goal.
Yes, but, please do stay on it.
Yeah, so Adama Traore started wide right. And so Barcelona are playing very much... Xavi's Barcelona is very much, I think, like how you'd expect it to be, because you think he's a lot like Guardiola, and it is just very similar. Very high line, really intense pressing in numbers. They congregate in numbers on like the flanks. You'll get maybe 5 players or 4 players in the same little vertical space. A small-sided rondo, so they have a little rondo during a game, so they can then switch to the other side.
Yes.
And Traore was hugging the right touchline, so that Dani Alves, who's the right back, was coming in as a central midfielder.
Yeah.
And so the shape looked like that kind of Guardiola thing that you have now. We have inverted wing backs who come into midfield to fill the midfield, and then Traore stays wide. And he set up that. He was really good in this game, and the little cross that he put into Alba for that was great. But he definitely shinned it.
Sure, but if you catch a wonder goal on the shin, in some ways that makes it even more impressive, because the technique was there to allow for the shin to score the goal.
I'm not sure it makes it more impressive if you execute the technique incorrectly.
Maybe Jordi Alba knew that the only way to score the goal was to catch it on the shin, because it wasn't, when we say the shin, it was really where the shin meets the foot. Some would say the front of the ankle rather than the shin. It wasn't a shin.
What's that bit of the leg called, though?
The front ankle.
The fin.
I think it was the fin of the leg. That's right. In the crook of where the foot meets the leg, that's where it hit. And in some cases, that's the right part of the body for these sorts of shots.
Well, he got side spin on it as well, because he's trying to connect. It's quite... The technique is hard in the first place, regardless of whether he shins it or not, because it's such a height. He sort of has to lift his leg higher than you might want to, but he gets... Obviously, there what you have to do is get your head... You have to stay over the ball so you don't just balloon it into the sky. So then to strike through it and get the side spin that puts in the corner, that was great. But the whole game was like, I thought Barcelona were superb in that first half. Especially.
Yeah, they were great. They were great. In fact, they scored 4 goals against Atletico Madrid. This is another thing I wanted to ask you about that seems a little unusual. Of course, we know that Atletico Madrid have been trying to transition to a slightly different style recently. It's not really that clear what Diego Simeone wants to do with the ball. But any team, we've seen the number of goals conceded across the last sort of 5 seasons, or at least their XG against has remained fairly consistent for the last 5 years, despite that change. So, shipping 4 goals, a very unusual thing for Atletico Madrid to do.
Yeah, I've not seen enough of Atletico to know exactly what's going on that's wrong with him, but we're looking at some numbers earlier, and it looks a bit like... so, the underlying stats in XG and... Sorry. So the Anyway, okay. Sorry, Mr. Editor, here we go.
Pull it together.
Sorry. Nothing's happened. I don't know why I'm laughing. Okay, here we go.
This is too long for there not to be any talking on the live stream.
I know.
What you're trying to say is that the underlying stats show that despite the change in style, they are not really conceding many more opportunities against than they ordinarily would, right? So I know that the sort of the popular thing at the moment is to say, well, they're not defending as well. I think that people look at football teams in sort of one of two ways. Either they're high possession, they're high attacking, or they sit back and score on the counter attack. We know that there are, many styles in between those two, and Atletico Madrid certainly are trying to translate from one to another. But their individual goals XG against really hasn't gone up that much.
Well, the underlying numbers show that they're actually about as good as they were last season. This is the weird thing. So in the table, the actual stats that matter were the points they've won and stuff like that. They are not. They're not doing very well. They are. I think after the match, I think Savic came out and he was talking about how they know they need to be doing much better, obviously, because they're not challenging for the title. They won it last year and were decent. But the question is whether Real Madrid and Barcelona were just so poor last season that's why they managed to take advantage. But underlying XG and XG against shows that they are performing, if not the same as last year, probably even a bit better. But there's something else with it as well. I think we're going to cover this in a video on Tifo's IRL soon. Like the start of last season, when Atletico flew into the lead, Luis Suarez was really performing above his XG. So he was like 16 goals or something in 10 games, something crazy like that. I'm maybe making that number up. But he scored a heap at the start.
No, that was it. It was 10.7 XG for him from the beginning of the season to February, and he scored 16 goals. There was also Marcus Llorente is another player who came up. 1.7 XG from that in that time period. Scored 8 goals. 2 of them, I think, were deflected shots. That's extraordinary.
It is, yes. That doesn't normally happen. And the thing with expected goals, you can't really rely on it for anything because it'll eventually level out. And so Atletico kind of leveled out towards the second half of the season and regressed to the mean, I think is what the saying is. And then they are now currently doing what they were doing last season. But the thing is, with XG, right, it can be a little mistake. So the goalkeeper is very good, Jan Oblak, and again was overperforming last season, but this season maybe just haven't had the luck. That can honestly be what it is sometimes. Suarez hasn't been scoring as many. They're trying to change the system a little bit. They started with, I think, a 3-5-2 this season, or 5-3-2, whatever you call it. But they've been changing to, I think it was more of a 4-3-3 today they played. And I thought they were nowhere near the game at all. Like they were from the start. No. One of the first things I think they said to you when we were watching it earlier was Barcelona had the ball in defence, and it was Araujo and Piqué were just walking with the ball, just slowly walking towards the halfway line. There's a good, honestly, 7, 8, 9, 10 seconds where Atletico didn't do anything, just sat off it. It was very different to what you see in English football, for example.
Yeah.
Because you just wouldn't get the time. You would get screamed at to go and close them down. But they were trying to stay off them that way, and then there was loads of errors. Like Versalco got hooked at half time, and then I think Daniel Vaz came on. He did not have a good time.
Was it his debut?
I think it was his debut. He came in, he didn't do very well. I think he was injured at the end as well. Didn't look very good for him. But yeah, Atletico, on one hand, we know they're trying to transition into being, they were very defensive and very rigid, and they've definitely shaken that off. And they're trying to attack more, but they've managed to keep their defensive solidity, which is important for how they want to play under Simeone. But yeah, so apparently they're just really unlucky, and it should balance out again that they're actually all right They were overperforming a bit last season, but yeah, there's a happy medium somewhere where they balance out but are better than they are now.
Well, this is the thing. They did enough in the first half of last season before various injuries in order to lock in that title win. But I would say the other thing is that they did this last season during a period of time where it was a real transition moment for Real Madrid and Barcelona. Real Madrid have hit the ground running this season, are currently, I think now, 7 or 8 points ahead at the top. Look the most likely to win at the moment. Barcelona finding their way back out under Xavi now. But they, it's a bit, it happens sometimes in the Premier League as well, doesn't it? A team wins it at a time when other top teams aren't performing hugely well. Barcelona, on that hand, they're looking an improved team, aren't they? We were talking earlier about how the one thing they were lacking earlier in the season was pace and crossing. They got it now. Yeah,
so obviously when you lose Lionel Messi, you lose everything because he's the best player in the world. But then what they definitely didn't have for a long time is pace, just flat out pace. And you saw that, I think, most of all in Champions League last season when they're just getting battered by teams who are more powerful than them. So I think they lack some power, some kind of aggression. And you think about how football's changed, like the kind of tiki-taka multi-possession football that we had before at Barca. It's moved on a bit to the more German model, which is very in transition, very vertical. There's a place for all of it at the same time. And this Barcelona look like a very quicker version of the Guardiola kind of thing. It'll never be exactly the same because, there's...
That time's come and gone.
Oh yeah, and also the players will play different ways. So you're not going to get Iniesta and Xavi and Messi in the same team ever again. You will have Dani Alves though.
You will have Gavi and Pedri and Ansu Fati.
Pedri's so good. I know I say this every time we talk about anything to do with Spain or Barcelona, but he will... My
favourite thing about watching that game with you today was you spent about 2 minutes talking about how good Pedri is, and at the moment that you decided to do that, he kicked the ball at someone, it went out and then fell over. I thought it was so perfect. Football often has good timing.
Well, even the best players can do that. I thought the thing so it'll be interesting to see how their front three works going forward because you want to have that pace. So Aubameyang's come in, right? Memphis Depay doesn't seem to be getting a game now. He was kind of their main striker, their main purchase before. He's now not really as important as you think he would be. Aubameyang, if he is good, I think he'd be all right in La Liga.
Sure.
I think so. Adama Traore, I can't figure out, right? So he is it's a little stat that I found that since he was been in the Premier League with, I think it must have been Wolves, maybe Middlesbrough Championship. I think Middlesbrough Championship, Wolves in the Premier League, whichever it was. His first season in the Premier League, I think, was 2017-18.
Yeah.
No player in the Premier League has attempted or completed more dribbles than Adama Traore in that time. Like, he is an absolute machine. He is so quick, explosive, great, technically at dribbling. He's amazing. You can even see his technique when he's doing his, the Barcelona players have to do a keepy-ups.
Yes, the sort of the player announcement where they film for media.
Yeah.
Yes.
So he's doing lots of skills. Basically, he's a very dribbly boy.
Very good at football.
Yeah, but I don't think his output is very good, and that's not controversial at all because it's what everyone says about him. He's got he can't shoot, he can't cross, can't pass. I went and watched all his crosses the other day. I genuinely did this, by the way.
You did watch all of them.
I went through all his crosses.
And can I just say, this came from an argument that you and I were having. I thought you were being unnecessarily negative about his end result. I know that the sort of the common wisdom around Adama Traore is that whilst he is fantastic at dribbling and carrying the ball, his end result often isn't that good. He had one season in the Premier League a couple of years ago where he scored more goals than he did at any other time, and I think that's when he came to everyone's attention because people have thought for some time now if he could finish or if he could cross the ball in better or pass the ball, he'd be it costs you 60-70 million pounds.
But this is the thing,
he's not great at doing.
Well, there are a few players in the world that can play like him. This is the thing. So he has that. So that explosive pace. I can't think of a player I've seen who is more fun to watch in that sort of regard. I think like Alan St-Maximin is also high dribble rate, so it's similar sort of stylistically, and is very quick.
And is a focal point for his team, so a lot of the play goes through him,
sure.
And therefore you see it more often.
But Traore can just run through people. And also came through La Masia, remember? So he should be well versed in how to play. So he's been to football university, so he knows how to play the Barcelona way inside out. And I think you saw, and this is very obvious, you put a player amongst better players and he will look like a better player himself. There was a couple of times and he absolutely battered a pass towards Dani Alves. Because Alves is one of the greatest players, I think, of all time, just kills it. It's dead instantly, and then they can move on from there because that's what Alves can do. But if you did that to what's the boy that went to Spurs, the right wing back, Doherty?
Yes.
It's going to bounce off his foot.
Sure.
So this is the thing. So then you're going to look worse. And when you're trying to chip the ball into the box, the thing with his crosses that I found when watching them all from this season, although I'm sure he has other good crosses, he tends to either lift it into the area so it's lofted, in which case the keeper can just come off his line and grab it.
Yeah.
Or he'd power it far too much over the top of everyone in the box, so you couldn't even use it as a cross.
Which is funny because that's kind of a bit what he did today, and then the first goal scored.
It was amazing. It was perfect, exactly.
Yeah.
And then Gavi's obviously reaching up and getting the header on it, but then Gavi's a really good player. Off the ball and on it, so he just knows where to be and when to time his jump and getting into that.
Maybe being surrounded by, I mean, I don't want to be harsh to Jimenez, who is a fantastic head of the ball, but being surrounded by so many fantastic players who can get on the end of Traoré crosses, do you think that's it's going to help his assist numbers this season?
I think you'll get a lot out of Luc de Jong now as a target man. Will be good for getting into that, but I would expect that Xavi will have him hit low crosses as much as possible because that tends to be what Barcelona do. That kind of cutback thing. Where what you want to do is you make the striker make a run to the front post, but the actual target is someone who's cut back to the edge of like the penalty spot. You know what I mean? So you into the box. It's like that Pro Evo goal where you get to the side of the box and then low pass it in. So everyone did it at uni.
Sure. Yeah. Well, there
good
we
game.
go.
I really enjoyed that game a lot.
Barcelona good now then?
Judging by today, yes. But I don't know. That's the first time they've had all these new players in. Xavi will need time with that the rest of the season. I think next season will be a better team because they'll get rid of Dembele and have some more money maybe to play with, wherever they're getting their money from.
Yeah,
and then they can step it up.
Sure,
I guess.
Step it up. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, there we go. That was Barcelona 4-2 Atletico Madrid. Fun game, and in fact, we watched that on La Liga TV, which was exciting. I really enjoyed about that. Before we move on, just to say. The what would you call the sort of live action graphics they were putting over the top?
Just on-screen graphics. There was a phrase for it.
The in-game on-screen graphics. They were cool.
Well,
At a corner, for example, they showed you the most successful corners so far, and the I liked that kind of stuff.
It's because it's overlaid on the pitch. That's why it's cool.
That's the thing. That's why I'm saying it's like augmented reality graphics rather than
BT Sports stuff they do is really good, where you can see different bits and pieces on the app, on the iPad, when you're watching the game.
Yeah.
So that's good.
Yeah.
I'd say that about BT Sport.
Well
done then.
There we go. Okay. Inter Milan won to AC Milan. Now, you didn't watch this game. I saw some of it. I saw most of the game yesterday. Huge win for Milan, I will say. The main thing I was going to say about this game, though, because in this game, Inter went 1-0 up, looked the dominant team. Milan sort of snatched it really towards the end. 2 goals from Olivier Giroud, who I'll be completely honest, I didn't even really know played for AC Milan until I saw that yesterday. So that was interesting for me to learn. But the upside, JJ, is you'll be pleased to know that it keeps the title race tight. Yeah? What a big turnaround from 1-0 down. And of course, also another red card. There's been a few red cards this weekend, and quite a lot I've noticed in Serie A. I don't know, I'm interested to look at that maybe on Tuesday. But Theo Hernandez also getting himself a red card at the very end of the game for a super cynical foul. But big game, big happenings there in Milan, and keeping Serie A exciting for the rest of the season.
Juventus aren't running away with it again. It's all these leagues in Europe are just ruined.
Juventus are 5th, I think.
Yeah, they're not doing very well.
No.
They can come back round. I mean,
Atalanta lost today as well. I can't remember who they were playing, but they lost against a team that I wouldn't expect them to lose against. So I believe Napoli won. Again, there were a couple of red cards today. Lots of red cards.
Very tight at the top. What's that? So 53 points for Inter, 52 Napoli, 52 Milan. Yeah, nice.
Yeah, there we go. Well, Serie A, let's keep eyes on that. Also, keeping eyes very closely on Leverkusen beating Dortmund 5-2, but not literally very closely because we also didn't watch this game. Again, there really are only 2 of us here this weekend, and we spent most of our time watching AFCON and a little bit of Barcelona, Atletico Madrid earlier. But I didn't want to leave that one out because Leverkusen beating Dortmund 5-2 is some result for the Bundesliga. Dortmund, of course, a couple of weeks ago, were playing Leipzig, chasing Bayern. They were I think 6 or 7 points behind. So this will do a great deal of harm to the title race in the Bundesliga. But again, it just shows that Dortmund
Bayern might not win it again.
Well, exactly. But this kind of shows again that Dortmund don't really know what they are as a team at the moment. It's very inconsistent.
I specifically definitely don't know what Dortmund are as a team. Again, talking about these leagues that are ruined around Europe, like I don't know if anyone will ever win the Bundesliga again.
Let's talk about this though, because it doesn't stop the Bundesliga from being fun, right? Like every time I watch a Bundesliga game, I like it. I like the football, but I know what you mean. It's kind of disappointing that Bayern win it every year. But the games are fun.
It's very easy to dismiss things like that you don't actually pay attention to, like people often do with the Scottish League, for example. It is always one of Rangers or Celtic that wins it. I don't know if that'll ever change again.
Yeah.
God, I wish it would. But it doesn't matter how much I wish, how many letters I write, nothing changes.
Yeah.
But then I guess we get to see Bayern in the Champions League and do all their...
Fisa Fatsack saying in the chat that Leverkusen completely destroyed Dortmund. I'm quite keen to see the highlights of that game.
I do have
actually.
I could watch it right now and tell you.
Will White saying the Bundesliga is fun to watch but not fun to follow. That's quite a nice, concise way of saying that.
That's quite good, yeah.
Thank you, Will White. Well, I guess we should have a break. Again, it's not a real break. It's just a break that we pretend to take for the purposes of the live stream. But the Athletics podcast editor, maybe producer Adonis, or a freelancer, who could say? Who could say? We'll have to have a keen ear out for this bit. Yeah? Again. So it's a real shame for them to have to listen to everything we say. Oh. Producer Don's up. What are you doing, Don? What's happening? How's everyone in the chat doing?
Are we having a nice time? What's happening?
A nice time?
It says, Joe, you look extremely handsome.
Well,
says,
thank you.
7 for 5.
Yes. JJ is my mum, says Luke. That's still going on, is it? I haven't looked at the chat for a few minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah, thoughts on Lampard's first game. We will come to that. Vlahovic, we talked about a little bit, talked about last season. Liam Devine, Celtic talk. We will do some Celtic talk. Producer Don leaving the room. Extraordinary scenes here at the Tifo studio.
We want now.
Left us alone. We can do anything we want. There you go. Yes, Boreham Wood. Did Boreham Wood win? I wrote down on the plan, this halfway through, that Boreham Wood were winning at half-time. I must look this up, because that would be funny if so. And can you talk for a moment, JJ, while I look it up?
Yes, Boreham Wood has reminded me of the animals of Farthingwood. And
I love that.
Remember that?
I do.
Very easy to play the piano. Like Rugrats is one of those things that everyone can do. It's in C major, so it's all in the white keys. It's easy.
It's very sad. Boreham Wood did win.
Did they?
Boreham Wood from the 5th tier of English football. We'll come back to talk about that. Boreham Wood beating Bournemouth 1-0. That's very funny. There are a few other FA Cup sort of giant killing games as well, so we'll pay attention to those. Are we in the wide there, are we? No, it was just on me. So that's
terrible news for you.
Terrible news.
Yeah.
Will you guys do a joke scattergram for the next UK election? I hope not. Very depressing affair.
We could go through some of my sponsored ad links.
Juan has a presentation tomorrow. It's 7 a.m. Help me sleep. I would say stop watching this immediately.
Yes. This will be available tomorrow to watch again.
In the grand scheme of your life, Juan, this right now, even though we're talking directly to you, not important. We're nobody. We're nothing. We don't matter. But if you mess up your presentation, it also probably doesn't matter. I don't really remember anything from school actually
No one
mattering.
ever checks what your degree actually is.
Does anyone check?
I don't think they do.
I don't know. I couldn't tell you.
I have a degree, but I don't think anyone's ever.
What have you got a degree in?
I've got a master's in film and visual culture.
21st century, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
There you go.
One of those.
N Brown saying the JJ Spotify tunes are great.
Oh no! Don't.
It's nice, isn't it?
Don't.
No, don't do that.
No.
For some reason, for a real reason, or just because you're embarrassed.
Hmm.
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 We're good to go, Don. Fine.
Good.
Big
Move
break.
on.
Big break. Ba-bum-bum-bum. Well, anyway, I don't know what I was just talking about, but
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah.
Funny? Funny for me or bad? Is it funny or bad?
I don't know.
Could it be? Are you worried because it's bad, or is it funny?
I want to move on to
Fine.
the next item.
Fine. Here we go. We're picking up again. Sorry, Athletic podcast editor, or if it's Adonis. It's taken a long time, but here we go. We're back. And we will be talking about the FA Cup because there were big games in the FA Cup. But before that, something, and again, I remind listeners to this podcast in the aftermath that we are live now, as we're doing a live stream immediately after the AFCON final. But one of the things I enjoyed greatly about today, which was myself and a producer, Don, one of our other producers, Craig, who you can follow at Craig Tifo on Twitter, he's just joined, and JJ, we were sat around watching the football, And I found out about a little game that JJ plays with himself that keeps him very happy and chuckling away there, which is a game about finding all the funny sponsored links on various large media sites. Do you want to explain this?
So if you go into a website like the Mirror or the Daily Mail or something like that.
The Mail Online.
Mail Online is a separate thing to Daily Mail, actually.
Yeah.
It's confusing. But what you'll see is those links that come up at the bottom with a big picture or something, and then the copy below it reads as though it's been written by AI. It doesn't seem very real.
Sure.
And I really, really like them a lot.
Now, you found a few of these.
I send them to my one of my best friends. I send them to him often when I find them. And today I found loads.
I thought it would be funny occasionally, as the conversation might dip here and there for the rest of the podcast. We talk about the FA Cup, we're talking about Burnley and Watford, Celtic, Rangers. There'll be moments, I think, for the rest of the show where we might want to cheer ourselves up and listen to a sponsored link headline.
Yeah.
Would you like to kick us off now with one just before we talk about Middlesbrough beating Manchester United?
Yeah, the first one I found that I liked is a picture of Phil Foden. He looks young. He had blonde hair. I think it's from the Euros, and the copy says, "Try not to gasp when you see Phil Foden's wife."
This is the thing. Can I say about these sponsored links as well? They're very much. They're either sort of things like, "You won't believe this cream," which turns you back 30 years of the aging process, or one of a number of things about how women look. That's another thing, And the other ones will be things like getting a gym-ready body.
Well, I've got a much better one for you now.
Yeah, go on, give me one more.
It's a picture of what looks like some sort of sea captain, and it says, "I've seen Jaws 7 times, and I still failed this Jaws quiz."
Who would click on that? Someone's paid to have that on somewhere.
Farmer sets up camera to see why leopard visits his cow every night.
That sounds good, though. I would click on that one.
If your cat bites you, here's what it really means.
Okay, well, I don't care about that one.
Oh, okay. One more, we can move on.
Yeah, it was funnier before.
Yeah.
Peter
Peter Kay is so skinny now and looks like a model.
No disrespect to Peter Kay.
No, he's funny.
But even if he is skinny now, I'm pretty sure he doesn't look like a model.
Yeah.
But again, sponsored links. Who's paying for these things? I'm so curious.
I don't know.
We should set Joey D'Urso to find out. I'm sure he'd be able to. He'd like that.
Yeah.
He loves an internet wormhole, does Joey D'Urso.
Okay.
Anyway, we talk. No achievement in the chat saying these can't be real. I guarantee you they're all real.
I have screenshots.
Yeah,
I can't
seriously,
share them.
they are. That's if they weren't real, then that really wouldn't have been. That would have been even less funny segment than it actually turned out
I
to
might
be.
share some on Twitter as well, too.
Yeah. But of course, Man United lost to Middlesbrough on penalties, 8-7. 8-7, some fantastic penalties here. In the game itself, JJ, Matt Crooks scored for Middlesbrough, Jadon Sancho getting a goal too. Of course, the headlines went to Anthony Elanga for missing the final penalty. And Man United created, a heap of chances during the game. Didn't manage to score any of them, though, including Ronaldo missing a penalty. This was quite the result.
Yeah, it's one of these things that feels it shouldn't happen to Manchester United, especially with the players they have and what they're trying to do and trying to rebuild and everything. But it feels so very apt. I don't know. It seems very believable, doesn't it? Chris Wilder coming to Middlesbrough and putting in that 3-5-2 that he likes as well. Paul Pogba came back into play.
Yeah,
he did some good things.
Yeah,
was against Middlesbrough.
That's true.
Yep.
Yeah.
Interesting to see where he fits in going forward as well.
I am curious. I mean, of course, he is out of contract at the end of the season, so theoretically could be leaving for free. But all the sounds around him and Rangnick have been positive so far. Who could say?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, to see as well what happens when Wan-Bissaka's back. He's not ready yet, is he, Wan-Bissaka? Because Diogo Dalot is still getting.
Diogo Dalot has still been playing, although it is unclear to me whether that would continue to be a preference or not. I thought Diogo Dalot's played reasonably well over the last few games. He certainly seems more the type of fullback that a Rangnick team might prefer to play with. Whether or not he is of the sufficient quality is, I suppose, a different question. But it was a little awkward at times in those early games watching Wan-Bissaka in the Rangnick system. I don't know quite how that's going to work. A problem for later, maybe.
Well, this is the ones I've got to figure out is how to get most out of Jadon Sancho. How to work Paul Pogba into that system, what system they even want to really play. There's an awful lot to fix with it. It's not I don't really know what Man United are just now. It's a team directly in transition. I mean, you could easily see that they'll look at Rangnick and say, well, we'll need to probably get another manager. because we're not winning every game, so you expect to win every game. But the more you do that, the longer it takes to actually get any sort of cohesion and
Well,
stability.
it's interesting. We made a video recently about this. Carl from earlier in the show was on the video. I remember him saying at the time, might have been Adam Crafton, who was the other guest, one of the two of them saying, it's a bit of an odd one with Rangnick, isn't it? Because if he does really well, they're obviously not going to get another manager. You wouldn't have thought. They'll probably just carry on with him next season. If he doesn't do well and they do get another manager, then when he tries to take the step upstairs, surely everyone's going to think, well, hold on a second, you didn't do well, so why do you get to go and do the advisory role thing? It's although what sounded like maybe smart thinking initially, it is full of holes and problems.
If it works, this is the thing. This sounds very obvious, but if it works, then it's going to be a very smart move. If it doesn't, there'll be all loads of reasons for why it was a bad
top tier analysis from JJ Bull the Bullet there.
But like Michael Cox often talks on Twitter about how you have to remember that Rangnick hasn't really managed for a long time. So you're trying to put someone into this one of the most difficult jobs in the entire football world, and trying to turn a team which is all over the place, has been constructed in many different ways, doesn't seem to be working. I mean, you look at how well Solskjaer had them running like last year even. Yep. I think maybe it wasn't that bad after all. But I think the plan was always to have him move upstairs and do that consultancy kind of stuff to help oversee everything and change more things long term, because obviously they've also changed who runs the club. Ed Woodward has left, and it's come Richard Arnold. We've done a video on this on Tifo IRL, which I'd recommend you watch, because it's lots of good information in there from people who know far more about it than certainly me, and explain what's going on there.
You're right, we've talked about this a lot. Let's move on to say that Nottingham Forest beat Leicester 4-1 in the FA Cup today. 4-1. I think you watched the highlight goals again. We didn't manage to watch the game because we're live streaming immediately after the AFCON final.
Oh, can I say one thing we should just, before we move on to Man United thing? Yeah. The controversial thing about that game was that the goal was allowed to stand at Middlesbrough scored.
Yeah, the handball goal.
It's clearly a handball. I can see,
Well, they changed the rules though, didn't they, in the summer, which was interesting. Like it was a handball, but it wasn't clearly intentional. The interesting one about that is, I think the rules stated that if he'd scored immediately afterwards, it would have been ruled out. But because he passed it, was the assist maker, and then the goal was scored by his colleague, it wasn't ruled out. Him touching the ball very clearly kept it under his control. The ball would have gone out of the touchline, I think, if he hadn't done. So it's a difficult one to understand. And they do make these tweaks to the handball rule. They make these tweaks to some of the controversial rules throughout the game. I can see why people would have been a bit upset about that. And I think you on other days you would see that given.
I genuinely think in handball things you should do it as though it's a five-a-side, where you just sort of everyone just accept it's handball. You just say it's handball and move on.
Everyone agrees.
You just sort of have that thing where everyone agrees. One person might fall out, you do it, but you just go with the majority because they're...
It's when you say, come on, obviously that's handball. And they're like, yeah, fair enough.
But the thing with that goal is, I'm not sure I would be like that at fives. At fives, I think I'd be... I didn't mean to kick it off in my hand, and then I passed it and it was gone, and just play on, doesn't matter.
Sure. Yeah.
I mean, obviously this did matter. Cause now you know
well, indeed, it did. There you go. Now impossible, I think, unless Rangnick and Manchester United go on an incredible scoring run. Impossible for them to win a trophy this season. So yeah, as we say, we move on there from Manchester United. Congratulations to Middlesbrough. It'll be exciting to see them in the next round. Other FA Cup games we referenced before: Nottingham Forest beating Leicester City 4-1. You watched the games here, the goals for this one, didn't you, JJ? But there was someone in the chat who asked just before a question I want to find here from Dylan Herndon: is James Maddison due for a big money move to a Premier League rival? Well, it's interesting that Dylan asks that question, because we were having a conversation about him just before the podcast started.
Yeah.
You think he's rubbish?
I don't think he's rubbish. I think
you didn't say that. You said you thought he was just all right and a bit overhyped.
Yeah, I think he is. I think he's. I think if he wasn't English, I don't think he'd be quite so highly talked up. Maybe easy for me to say, but I don't think. So you look at players who are creative, you need to look at the numbers they produce, and his chances created tends to be quite high, but mostly from set pieces. His open play chance creation, there's a good chance I'm absolutely wrong with this, but I remember when I was looking through all Opta stats before, that he never actually, he was never actually that good in open play. So you can separate chances created from set piece and open play, and suddenly players who look very creative, you realise it's because they're hooking the ball into the box. That's why they're good. Yeah. Now, I saw James Maddison when he was playing at Aberdeen, in the flesh, and he was wearing a football strip as well at the same time. But
Thank goodness.
Yes, very much so. It'd be horrifying were he to like turn inside out or just a skeleton in the team.
It happens.
I thought then. So I thought he was a great player, especially at Aberdeen at that level when he was there. He was young, he wasn't quite finished. And he said that he learned a lot at Aberdeen, especially under Derek McInnes, the manager, who was very good at kind of turning like kids who are just coming to the first team and making them ready to play with the big lads.
These are the sorts of things you remember when a player says he learned a lot at Aberdeen. You'll remember that to the day you die. He scored his
top corner free kick against Rangers once, and it was amazing. And I think about it now and again. But then he was very much a kind of. This all sounds overly harsh, right? I think he's a good player, clearly, but he's like a YouTube player. So he has a highlight that happens now and again every few games, and you think, wow, that guy's amazing.
Yeah.
He's so good. I should get him in my team. But he doesn't produce it that often. And when he scored a few goals, I think last season, maybe the season before, he's interviewed on TV and said that, he's really trying to improve his numbers because that's what he needs to do. And that's what Rodgers would be telling him, I would imagine.
Yeah.
As a coach, you'd be saying, like, you're doing the right things in the final third, you're creating chances, but you're not producing the numbers that are going to make you an actual star.
Yeah.
And you think of the players that he might be compared to coming through to England, especially, you get players like, Jude Bellingham, you've got Phil Foden, is essentially a 10. I mean, how much better of a player, or how much more does Foden produce? Much more exciting is he to watch? A lot.
Well, there's Jack Grealish as well. I mean, I guess the way of looking at it is who is going to get into the England team ahead of him, right? Well, anyway, as I said, we didn't watch the Leicester game, so we weren't able to talk about that too much. Apologies. Again, just the two of us watching a few different things. But there were a few other results here that we can go through. Norwich beating Wolves, I thought, was an interesting one. Wolves have, under Bruno Lage, have been a fantastic team for most of the season so far. Great to see Norwich there getting on a bit of a winning run. As referenced, as told to us by someone in the chat, I'd written down in the plan just before we started so far, Boreham Wood beating Bournemouth at half-time. They went on to win that game 1-0, which is fantastic. Very exciting again to see Boreham Wood from the fifth tier of English football beating Bournemouth. There we go, a big sort of giant killing in that regard. Liverpool easing past Cardiff in the other Sunday game. And of course also...
Big thing in the Liverpool thing, though, is that they've got Harvey Elliott is back.
Yeah, so soon it feels to me.
Yeah, I thought he was going to be missing most of the season, but he came back in and scored. I think Jota scored and someone else important, Minamino, I think.
Oh, Minamino, yeah.
That's the thing. I saw someone tweet, and I think it was Bearded Genius, I think it was, said that Liverpool have already made moves to replace, not Salah, but Mane and Firmino. Obviously, they got Jota in there. By bringing in these, so they brought in Elliott, Jota, and now Luis Diaz, who also came off the bench. I think he made his debut for Liverpool. I think he got some sort of hit as well.
Yeah,
I hadn't seen him play, but apparently something happened to him that wasn't good.
Yeah,
but that's what they've dealt with that. So if you look how well run they are already planning for what happens when Mane is not going to play for them anymore, or if Salah goes somewhere, or Firmino stops playing, or whatever. They've done that. Whereas Manchester United still haven't even replaced Michael Carrick.
Well, there we go.
Yeah,
I've just realised I can take my headphones off now.
Yeah, I took mine off a long time ago.
So I don't need to listen. Carl's not there anymore.
Yeah.
That's so much nicer.
I also, at the start, I had noise cancelling on by accident.
Right.
That was hard to hear anything.
Well, that's no good.
Should have done that.
Okay, fine. Other things that we can discuss. Frank Lampard, of course, it was his debut game for Everton, who beat Brentford 4-1 with goals from Mina, from Holgate, from Richarlison and Townsend. I wonder if that could be an interesting start to Frank Lampard's career there with Everton. Very exciting for him and for the fans, no doubt.
Good start. I really enjoy the tweet that was put out. I'm not doing very much analysis today, I've noticed. The tweet went out of Frank Lampard's welcoming video they put on social media, and it's him with the Hollyoaks theme tune in the background. It's very good. This game, so his first team, this is his first Everton team, I thought he'd play with it's very predictable. I think he'd go with like a 4-2-3-1 and play the kind of Mourinho Lampard way you'd maybe think. At Chelsea it was mostly 4-2-3-1, but he set up in a 3-4-3.
Did he really?
Back three, yes. And obviously they won, so that's good.
It's funny, I suppose, with the back three, you're really looking for safety and solidity.
Well, that's when, what they need to do is try and make themselves much harder to beat. They've been just terrible at everything, basically, Everton. Now, we're looking through some stats for a video we've done. It's to do with like passes attempted, passes completed. They're really low down. They hardly have any of the ball. Their ball progression is poor, and their ball Ball progression and ball retention, they're both very poor. So the way Benitez has played them has been very defensive. I think Lampard probably more of an attacking coach. But the first thing they've done, the last game I think that they played was a 4-4-2 or something like that before he came back in. And that was, I think it was Duncan Ferguson in charge for that game. And they played against, Norwich they played, and they were also 4-4-2. And so this team's a 3-4-3. But I think it gives Everton good balance, the players that they have.
Yeah.
They don't have very good, I mean, they've lost, Luca Digne has gone, and obviously to Aston Villa, so that's a big left-back shaped hole gone. They brought in Nathan Patterson at right-back. They signed another left-back as well, I think. Benitez was allowed to buy those fullbacks, sell one of their best players, and then was fired. Which made a lot of sense.
Yeah.
But the back three, like Holgate, Keane, Godfrey, should work. They did sign Dele Alli and Donny van de Beek, who I think might actually be quite similar players, especially positionally, and that could end up being a thing where they're trying to get into the same spaces. I think Donny van de Beek's could probably adapt more to play in the 8 role. They kind of have a 3 in midfield. I don't know if Van de Beek could play as part of a midfield 2. This is the shape they're going to play going forward. I mean, if this is the shape they're going to play going forward, and it might not be, this is the very first game.
Seems odd to have got Dele Alli and Van de Beek.
Yeah, that just seems like they've got some good players available so they can get them in. But doing that and then spending 40 million on Dele Alli, who there was a time when he looked like an amazing player, Dele Alli, but and it would be really nice if he can get back anywhere near close to what he was when he was at that level. But this seems very much like an Everton signing, where they sign someone who's all right, can't really get a game at his own team, and then they sign them for all the money. It's very much like Alex Iwobi, I think.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll be curious to see more of those as Everton progress under Frank Lampard. The Premier League again starting next weekend, so very exciting for us there. Sixth tier, Kidderminster Harriers took West Ham all the way to extra time, JJ, before losing sadly. Get this, I don't know if you saw the stats from this game. Declan Rice scoring in the 91st minute to 1-1 to take it to extra time. And then Jarrod Bowen scoring in the 121st minute to prevent it from going to penalties. Kidderminster Harriers so close there to an exciting FA Cup scalp.
That's the magic of the cup, isn't it? It's the thing that like any team can really pull off one of these big upsets if they just defend really well. And that's the only thing they really have to do. Again, my analysis is not very good today, but yeah, I don't really have any. The FA Cup's really great, but the way you beat teams that are bigger than you is just by doing the same thing usually. It is by defending all game and taking advantage of one set piece or a counter-attack. There's a lot of controversy surrounding Declan Rice's decision to celebrate his equalising goal against a team so far down the table. That's a bit pony. He shouldn't have done that. I think it's all right.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll tell you what. We'll go to one more quick break. It's been a long show today, but there's a little bit more to talk about. We're going to come back and reference Burnley, Watford being 0-0 draw at the bottom of the table. In fact, I'll probably just say that again. And Celtic Rangers, of course, was last Wednesday. We didn't get time to talk about that before, so we will reference that, of course, as well. It's another break. And by the way, gang, in the live stream, we'll take 1 or 2 questions at the end. So if you have questions to ask us, start putting them in the chat now, because we got it on slow mode. So we'll take some time to catch up. Football-related questions, please. Thank you, T-Pose. Okay.
I do have more of those.
1 or 2 more of those.
You want them, yeah.
You ready to go, Don? Outside. If you just grab from outside before we pick up again, that'd be great. It's on my desk, actually. Sorry, bear with us. Producer Don just grabbing something for us to carry on. Danka. Yeah, lovely. Some questions coming in now.
Lovely, these are good. Yeah, thank you for these.
Delightful. 11 as we speak. As I live and breathe. I'm a bit knackered, but perfect questions. What do you guys ever talk about? Maybe. The thing they never say about live streaming is get very thirsty.
I got water.
I haven't got any. I'm going to get some immediately as soon as we finish. I don't know if Tifo viewers there noticed the immediate drop in energy after that segment. Sunday, we've had a long week.
Stop paying attention to myself when I was talking now.
We have had a long week. All right. You ready to rock, Don? Ready to rock, JJ?
Yeah.
Picking up. Thank you, the Athletics audio editor, once again, for cutting out this bit in the middle where we didn't do anything.
Also, apologies for most of this podcast. Also,
yes. Okay, back after the final break. Burnley and Watford. Let me read that one more time. Burnley 0 Watford. Quite dull. I don't know. I didn't watch it. But the reason I bring it up, JJ, is because it's right at the bottom of the table. Burnley and Watford both needing 3 points, really, both taking one. It could be enough. The game in hand issue at the bottom of the Premier League table at the moment is a very interesting one. And of course, this game being played is an example of the consequences of that. Games in hand at the bottom, very much not the same as games in hand at the top. But Norwich only just staying outside of the relegation zone there. Things are really hotting up ahead of the end.
Well, Burnley have 3 games in hand on them.
They've got Wout Weghorst as well now.
Yes.
Who I did actually want to see some of this game. It was at 6 p.m. yesterday. I couldn't watch it just to see him play.
Did he play?
Yes, he did. He started.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, Newcastle, I think, did really well in the window, and I would expect them to slowly pull away. It might even end up being teams like Brentford and Leeds get pulled down a little bit towards the bottom. Leeds have had their injury problems all season long. If they can, that's just something you can't really do much about, right?
Mm-hmm.
Burnley have just been selling their players and not really bringing in anyone for ages. So bringing in Weghorst, having already brought in what's his name, Cornet, early in the season.
Yeah.
This is the first time they've really looked outside the island that we live on to try and sign players.
Yeah.
Well, I guess Jeff Hendrick was Irish. But yeah, so they're trying to bring in players from abroad, maybe like expand a little bit and make themselves a bit sexier, have some nice attacking players. Sean Dyche, I'd imagine, won't deviate from how they play. It's going to be the same thing that'll be necessary to be really hard to beat. Rely on the same things that they do and still try and punch up the entire time. They're not going to be a big team. But I don't think Norwich are safe at all. I think Watford are in real trouble. Newcastle should be able to pull away. Everton, I think, made a decent choice of changing manager when they did. But they had a little new manager bounce in that win over Brentford with the FA Cup. So this could be a good start for Lampard. We still don't really know what Lampard is as a manager. It was very mixed at Derby, I thought. And at Chelsea, there were some good with a lot of very obvious bad, particularly when they attacked and left loads of space behind for people to counterattack. And any decent team was able to exploit that on many occasions. So that'll be a thing we see with Everton.
This is really interesting. Sam Troy in the chat, I'm not sure if this, well, I haven't fact checked it, but Sam Troy says, if everyone gets a point from their games in hand, then the bottom 4 are tied on points, which is a quite exciting scenario there. There are a couple of other questions. One from Robin Escalante, who asks, is Julian Alvarez any good? Now, Julian Alvarez from River Plate, of course, Manchester City signed him. I think he's gone back on loan. Has he gone? He has gone back on loan, hasn't he, until the end of the season.
So it'll be when the Libertadores ends.
Yes.
Then he can move over, yeah.
Yeah, so we didn't talk about that last week. I forgot to put him on the list of the sort of transfers to discuss. But I guess the question for you there, JJ, would be, is Julian Alvarez any good? Do you know?
Yes, I do know. He is he's a really, really talented striker. Well, actually, we talked about him in one of the videos we did around Christmas time was Tifo's Team of the Year or something. Tifo Awards we did. And it's a great video. It's very well cut by editor Craig, who you can follow on Tifo on Twitter. I'm seeing lots of words.
Tifo Craig.
Yeah, Tifo Craig on Twitter. Follow him. But we mentioned we were trying to pick a best player outside of the top 5 leagues, traditional ones, and so we scoured all over the globe and found Alvarez, who's been doing very well for River Plate. He's been to be thought of very highly there. I think he's 22, so he should be at an age like he's not like Gabriel Jesus came into Man City and was able to play straight away when he was younger. Some players just develop at different times. It could be like it's normally not physical, it'll be mental readiness for it. But I think from what I've read, mostly of Sam Lee actually on The Athletic, subscribe as well, that you don't know if he'll be ready to come in straight away and make a lot of noise.
He's a young lad.
Well, there was a theory that maybe he wasn't being bought for Man City, but he'd been bought for the City group. So he could go to one of the other places like an MLS or they've got one in India. I think they've got one in Australia as well.
Yeah.
So it could have been that's what they're doing. And that's quite an interesting new model of what a lot of clubs are doing, where they have various, other assets. So yeah, but he'll probably come in, and I'd imagine they'll sign another striker to be the actual, or some sort of forward to be the main one next season. I would have thought.
Okay.
They'll do, yeah.
Okay. Well, do you want to tell me a little bit about Celtic Rangers? That was last Wednesday, I believe, and I'll find one final question from the chat as you're doing that, and then we'll end.
Okay, that's good. Yeah, Celtic Rangers was great fun as a neutral. I'm sure there are Rangers fans who are unhappy. I talked to some yesterday, actually. I talked to some Rangers fans yesterday. Celtic were really good. So Ange Postecoglou has come in. It's taken him a long time to get, I think not an awfully long time, but enough time to make this team play the way he wants them to. It's very much in his image now. Lots of rotations. They press, they attack quickly. He's brought in a lot of new players as well. Hatate came in and scored a goal in this game here. So if you've never watched the Old Firm before, it is usually very exciting. Weirdly, both teams have now stopped. I think both have. Certainly Celtic had it. And I think as a response to Rangers in the first place. They don't have any away fans in the ground now.
Yeah.
So it changes the atmosphere a little bit.
Yeah.
Celtic also spent loads of money on these. It was a bit of a meme on these disco lights that they had. So nights like this look amazing on the TV because it's proper theatre, all the lights going off and stuff.
Yeah.
So you have that, and the noise, honestly, like it sounded like my iPad was louder than it normally should be because of the noise coming through. I watched it on an iPad. And yeah, the atmosphere in these games is something else. But Celtic were just at them. Rangers couldn't get out. It was like when you're playing a video game and you're sure that the computer's against you because there's nothing you can do. It doesn't matter what you do, where you pass it. All your passes go not where you aimed them. It happens in real life too, I think. Sometimes the computer's not against me.
Welcome again to JJ's conspiracy theories, where the computer is against him, and nothing that he thinks is going to happen will indeed happen. Now, JJ, remind me, was it Rangers or Celtic today? Was it Rangers or Celtic today that won 5-1 or something, 5-0?
Rangers won 5-0 today, I think it was.
Okay.
Against Hearts. I did not see that coming.
Great.
So the Celtic and Rangers are very much in a title race this year. So the thing is, you'd always expect. Obviously, Rangers won it last year and stopped the 10 in a row by Celtic. Hearts are doing all right and should not probably have lost to that, but that's almost certainly a response to they got absolutely battered in that first half of Celtic Park, like completely done in. I've not seen them get done like that for a long time. So that's the response. And obviously Giovanni Van Bronckhorst is their manager now. He replaced Steven Gerrard when he went to Aston Villa. And that doesn't look good for you, just brand new in your first Old Firm game as a 3-0.
No.
Like they slowed down in the second half.
Yeah.
Today actually Aaron Ramsey, because obviously Aaron Ramsey signed, I keep saying obviously, you've noticed that. Aaron Ramsey signs.
I've noticed that, yeah.
I'm going to stop doing
It's been a long day.
Yeah. Aaron Ramsey signed for them on loan from Juventus and has he is come in. I think he came off the bench to play in this game. He didn't play against Celtic. He was sat in the stands watching, undoubtedly a little worried as what he was getting himself into.
Yeah.
The title race will go to the end of the season. They're both, it's 60 points and 59, 60 for Celtic, Rangers 59. So that was them pushing above to get in there. Obviously the other main concern for the season is that Aberdeen are absolutely hoarse this year and can't win away from home ever. I think it's one of the worst records I've seen Aberdeen have. New manager Stephen Glass. Yeah. Starting to turn some of the fans. An old glassy boy.
Who will win the trophy? It's very hard to say. We don't know. But we'll find out for you. This is the trophy there. One more question from the chat that I had was from Fardeen Siddiqui, wondering, and this is, again, if you like football stuff and you don't care about who we are, then this is the time for you to end listening to the podcast. But people ask me this question all the time, and I just saw it come up in the chat, so I figured it would be a useful time to answer it. Wondering why all four of you are not on the podcast at the same time. All four of us, referencing myself, JJ, Seb Stafford-Bloor, and Alex Stewart. You would notice, of course, that four of us are never on the podcast at the same time. It is not because we can't be in the same room. It is quite literally because, A, we only have 3 microphones to do this properly. B, we only have so many cameras, so creating a kind of 4, 5, 6 shot camera switcher for producer Don over there becomes a little bit complicated. And C, everyone, although it might seem like we just sit here and say nothing for lots of time, everyone's very busy in their week, so it's nice for JJ and Alex to be able to take time to relax. You know, Seb and I, of course, the real workhorses, the Shire horses, you might say, the powerful Shire racehorses pulling everyone through.
That's not how this works, sister.
Well, it's just, horses, big or small, fast or slow, We're all different types of horses.
Yes.
But anyway, Fardeen, that is the answer. It is quite boring. There we go.
Could I tell you an ad?
An ad.
Sponsored ad.
Oh, yeah, you can tell me one more sponsored clip before we go.
One more.
One more sponsored link, yes.
I was going to do two more. Just two more.
Two more.
Yeah.
Fine.
The US built a new submarine the world is afraid of. It's a picture of a submarine.
This is true, though. I bet that's true.
I bet that's true.
I'm afraid of all the submarines that, not just the US, but every nation has built.
What are they up to, those submarines? All
Well,
sinking
they're,
into water.
nuclear patrolling, aren't they? I don't know. I
I
assume
guess
so.
so. Final one is a picture of someone cutting a banana with a knife. And it says, bowels, a simple trick to empty them completely.
Any article that starts with bowels, I'm reading it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's important to keep regular. Well, there we go. JJ Bull the Bullard, thanks to you for today.
Thank you very much, Joe Devine.
There we go. Producer Don, thanks. And again, well done for keeping the mild panic I'm sure you were feeling earlier to a small emotion and getting through the day. Thumbs up from Producer Don. Thank you to today's athletic audio editor. Whether it is Adonis or a freelancer, who could know? But thank you for all the hard work you've done, specifically on this, because I think it's now about an hour and a half long. And thanks to me. Thanks to all the live chat. We're going to do some more of these live streams as and when. I'm getting tired. As and when there are large events to cover, we're thinking maybe the latter stages of the Champions League. I believe they begin again in March or in April. We might do the quarters and the semis, have a bit of fun. Who could say? I've always thought it's a good idea to commit yourself to something publicly so that you can't change your mind later.
I was going to say it would be better if you didn't do that. But
that's true. And when you and I both arrive to our respective homes at well gone midnight.
Yeah, I don't know how I'm going to get back now.
We're going to have a great time. Thanks to everyone who joined us in the chat this evening. And we will be back next week as normal, I believe, with Alex Stewart joining us. Guten Nacht all. Guten Nacht. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
The cup. Stan's waving goodbye. There he goes.
Don's hand there.